Archbishop Hurley was Bishop of the city of Durban for 45 years. So he changed and developed a lot over that time. I think he started off as a very young man at the age of 31. He didn't know a lot about the problems of this city and of this country, but he gradually exposed himself to what was happening, and it had a profound effect upon him. And he began to see more and more clearly that he should oppose apartheid and he should help the church to do that. And part of that vision was to work with other churches, not just the Catholic Church, but other churches like the Anglicans and the Methodists and the Congregational Church and the Presbyterians and so on, because together they could be much stronger than divided. And so he established Diakonia, and here you are in the center which is known as the Diakonia Center. And the purpose of Diakonia was to help the churches to be involved in the struggle for justice. Not to do that work on behalf of the church, but to show the church ways in which it could make a contribution to bringing about a better society for all the people of South Africa. And as time went by, so he became more and more concerned also that the church should reach out to people of other faiths, all the great faiths that are represented here in Durban, Muslim, Hindu and Jewish faiths. And he wanted to see the church involved in working with them as well. Wherever we could do things together, he felt we should do things together with them. One of the first requests we received in 1976, when we started across the road in what was the Durban Central United Church, is organizations coming to us and saying, we can't find a place where we can have our offices and we can be treated with dignity. We're not allowed to use the toilets. People ask us, what are we doing in the building, and so on. So right from the beginning, we began to look for a place, and we looked across the road and saw this building, which had been a convent school, but was then being used, I think, for some adult education purpose. And we began to set our sights on this and say, if only we could get that building, then we could meet all those needs. We could have many other organizations having their offices here, and people could come here for meetings and for conferences. Well, eventually in 1983, we were able to buy the building and convert it into a center. And now it's used extensively. Many people use this as a place to come for, as a refuge, you know, when they were having very difficult times in the townships, or when the security police were pursuing them. And I think that this place gave them some feeling of protection, some feeling that they were working alongside other people who had a similar vision and understood what difficult places they came from. Yeah. Okay. Yes, there was the Durban Housing Action Committee, and there was JORAC, which was the Joint Rent Action Committee. I think they saw the church as a place which would provide some space for them, both physical space and a kind of psychological space, that the church would take up their cause and defend them if they had difficulties with the state. And well, we tried to do that as far as we could. Well, they didn't like Diakonia. They saw us as a threat, that we were kind of getting in the way of what they wanted to do to people, to oppress them and to prevent them expressing their ideas. But we saw that that was our duty, that, and the duty of people of other faiths also to. Well, you know, we were constantly under the scrutiny of the security police, following us, opening our letters, bugging the telephones, detaining some of the staff. So they really didn't like Diakonia. Well, he was always very ready, you know, if we asked him to come to meetings or to help people, like workers on strike or workers involved in a boycott. He would give a lot of financial help to people, and he would also be prepared to defend them, you know, to take their part whenever he could. He retired at the age of about 76, 77, I think, and he chose to go to Emmanuel Cathedral, which is quite close by here, and for the last 10 years of his active ministry, he was the parish priest there in that very big and difficult parish, situated in a very poor area with thousands of people passing through it every day on their way to work, on their way to the markets. But he felt at home there, and he felt that he was there with the people and that he could make a contribution, even though he was quite old. Yes, well, of course, Emmanuel Cathedral is right next door to the Juma Masjid, which is the largest mosque, I think, in the Southern Hemisphere. And he was very happy to be there. He would sometimes in the very early morning, I've been told by people from the mosque, he would go across there, you know, at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and sit in the mosque and listen to the people chanting from the Quran. And he felt that this was a way to say to people there that we are really one with you, and that he did not like the difficult relationships, you know, between the Muslim and Christian faith, and he wanted to see a new period in which we would try to work together much more. Well, he wanted to see a country that would create abundant life for all its citizens. He found it very difficult that there was so much poverty. You know, even after 1994, he was living there in the midst of great poverty, and he really liked the RDP program. Remember, the Reconstruction and Development Program. He thought that was a program that the church could really support, and he gave a lot of backing to it. But he was disappointed when we got the GEAR program, because he thought this isn't really the way to go. He was really quite worried about that program. Well, I think he would hope that organizations like Diakonia would keep going, because there are many things still to be done. There's the whole issue of AIDS. There's the issue of economic justice. There are people who have been wounded by the violence of apartheid, the violent political conflict that we had here in the 80s and 90s. And there's a great need to deepen our democracy. And he would be saying to the church and to people of faith, keep going. You are still needed. Make your contribution. Give an example. Be a light to the whole society.